Thank you. In the name of Préstamos CDFI, a division of Chicanos por la Causa, we are working this webinar together along with UNR Extension. Our intention is that this information is used by all attendants to get better business operations. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Noe. Hello, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Well, are we then ready to roll?
Sure. Today we're going to talk about search engine optimization for small businesses. And my name is Chris Van Oosten. I have 15 years experience in search engine optimization. And let me move my laptop over so I'm kind of looking at you guys as I'm looking at the screen. I've done work with local businesses, e-commerce, info products, drop shipping, service as a software, or software as a service. I'm a member of some of the world's top search engine optimization collectives. They're the top people in the industry. We work together. We have over 1 million sites so that as things change with the algorithms, we can see what's going on pretty quickly. I've worked with search engine optimization, digital ads, social media marketing, Amazon marketing, you name it. I've been around a while. I've done quite a bit of it. Today, my vocal cords seem to be a little bit tight, so forgive me if my voice crackles in and out. I sound like I'm going through puberty again. So today we're going to talk about getting found online and how to convert those leads. So the first thing is we need to understand what someone is going through when they're looking for your product or service, right? So someone sits there and says, all right, I need something. So where am I going to find it? I'm going to go to Google or another search engine, but Google's pretty much the top one right now. And once they type into once they type in something into the search, then the algorithm in Google goes to work, right? It goes out and it knows certain things on the site, on the web, and it starts parsing that information. And most of the information it's going to parse is based on relevancy and experience. So with relevancy, you're looking at content, the location of your search. Are you in Texas? Are you in Nevada? Are you in California? And then where, what city, and what part of that city. And it depends on what you're searching for at how much that is important. It's going to look at if you're on a mobile device or if you are on a desktop. And then it's going to look at some metadata, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Experience that Google is looking for is make sure you're safe, right? Do you have a secure site? Do you have malware on your site? Those kind of things. It's looking at how fast your site is loading, because that's the experience. If it takes too long to load, then people don't like it and they move away and they look for something else. Is your site mobile friendly? Obviously, very important for mobile devices. Is your information unique, or is it the same as everybody else? And then what is your historic engagement? Previously, when people come to your site, do they stay on your site? Do they look at multiple pages? Or do they just come to your site and then bounce off of it and go look somewhere else? So there are a lot more other finer things that Google looks at, but these are the primary ones that that you as a business owner can deal with relatively easily. So Google sends those results after they parse all of that information, and you get the search results page, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So what you're going to see is these different parts of the search. So there's the ads, there's the map section, there's the organic listings, and then there's what's called the knowledge graph. And Google changes all the time and they test out different things. So sometimes you're going to see something different, and you might see something different on mobile than you see on desktop. But these are the general areas that have been around for a very long time. You'll get the shopping section every once in a while. Sometimes you'll get a map section and a little section I saw the other day of multiple businesses in your general location. So there are a lot of different parts and pieces. Obviously, you want to try and be in as many as possible. So you want to show up in the map section. You want to try and show up on the Google knowledge graph. That's harder to do for competitive terms, but for your business name, certainly you should be showing up for that. You want to show up in the organic listings, not only just one, but potentially many, right? This person has their website and their Yelp review, and actually 2 Yelp reviews, but this is a best in auto repair. And then of course, if you're spending on ads, you'll show up in the ads too. So there's a lot of different places, and you want to try and be as many as possible for as long as possible. So what are you supposed to do this, right? First thing is you need to determine what people are looking for, and you need to be relevant to that term. This is the general purpose of search engine optimization. However, it can be pretty complex and very technical. I'm going to try and stay away from too much technical jargon. I might still fall into it. If I start talking in clicks and whistles, somebody let me know. But I'm going to try and be clear and show you how you as a business owner can affect your SEO in relatively simple terms. So here are a few things that you need to be done for standard SEO, right? There's this whole list, and each one of these bullet points has a list of bullet points under it. We're not going to cover all of this today in specifics, but I am going to talk about some essential things that are relatively easy for you to do. So I jumped ahead of myself. What can I do as a business owner, right? So start with the easy stuff. And that's going to be keyword research, content development. We're going to talk about image best practices. Going to talk about how important it is to have Google business listing, because that's how you get in the maps and the knowledge graph. And then other business listing profiles, right? And we need to constantly be comparing that to what Google looks for with their algorithm, right? The relevancy and the experience and the different subcategories under those things. So let's start with Google keyword research, right? You're going to inherently know a little bit intuit what your potential client is searching for online. Right here, this example, we're talking about Las Vegas Auto Shop. I've used this in one of my other presentations. So if you were on that, you'll be familiar with this. So the Las Vegas Auto Shop, right? If I'm looking for a car repair and I'm in Las Vegas, that's something I might type in. I might just type in auto shop, but Google's going to know that I'm in Las Vegas and where I am in Las Vegas. And so it's going to, put up relevant search results for me. So what you need to do as a business owner is say, okay, well, I think that my clients are going to be looking for this term and this term and this term. So go out, search what that term is, and look what shows up in the top 10, right? And what we see here is we have auto and truck service. We have car repair, certified mechanic. We have auto repair in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have auto repair shop in Las Vegas, Nevada. Auto repair specialist, professional auto repair Las Vegas, mechanics, right? Those are all highly topically relevant, all to that Las Vegas auto shop term that we search. And then in addition to that, we have a couple qualifiers here, right? We have the best and the top. So someone might be looking for the best auto shop in Las Vegas, or the best auto repair shop in Las Vegas. So those terms will all come up with a result page that's very similar to this. And then there are adjacent relative things, right? That's what's in the orange. That's the diesel repair, the light and heavy truck repair, full service repairs, ASE certified, oil change, transmission repair, that kind of stuff. So Google says, all right, well, I understand auto repair is also inclusive of transmission repair and oil change and diesel repair and that kind of thing. So it's good to have those related searches in things like your description or other pages on your website. So do the search, you go through, you collect a whole list of these, and then you pair them up into topically related categories. So what's the main keyword for your homepage, right? In this case, it's auto repair shop and similar things to it, right? So car repair, mechanic, auto shop, truck repair, those could all exist on that one page. Then you have different categories, right, that should potentially be another page. So in this, it might be transmissions, brakes, auto electric repairs, oil change and maintenance, emissions testing, right? And each one of those would have their own page with their own set of keywords that go with that. And you would do a similar search for each one of these pages and build that out. It's really important to have your pages very topically tight, right? So you don't want a page on auto repair and a page on car repair and a page on mechanic. Those are all the same general topic. But you do want brake repair versus emissions testing. So once we have those keywords and we know basically what our clients or potential clients are searching for, then we need to build content around that, right? And content development is important. You need to determine that keyword or list of keywords and put that into the content. Not overly so, just in a natural fashion. You don't want to stuff it full of keywords everywhere. You want to create unique content. So you need everything around that topic. Use the keyword and phrases and be different than everybody else, right? Don't write the same thing. Don't copy and paste something. This is something that e-com sites have issues with generally, is they have a product that they're working on as like a middleman person, right? And so they have a supplier that provides a description of their product and they copy and paste that on their website. Well, that is not unique content. So you need to take that content, rewrite it into your own words and into maybe a more exciting content than just the details and specifics of the product. And then that helps rank that a little bit easier. Look at the first page competitors who are on the first page of Google. How long is their content? Is it 300 words or is it 1,000 words? Is it 4,000 words? And kind of take an average of those and take a look. Generally, you might have a couple outliers, but generally they're all pretty close to the same. So let's say it's 1,000, then I might write 1,200 words. So you have a little more content than the bulk of the ones listed on the first page. And then within that content, you want to link to other pages on your website that are relevant to the topic. So, the car repair will have a link to the brake repair, which might have a link to a blog post that is on different types of brakes. So you want to make sure that you're also not linking to those pages with the same word every time, right? Mix it up a little bit. Don't link to the brakes page with brakes, the word brakes every time. You know, it might be brake repair, it might be brakes, it might be this page. You can be generic, but you want to mix it up a little bit. So let's put this back on the algorithm, right? Relevancy, we're talking about content, and we're talking about metadata. And I will get to that, but that's also part of your content, right? And then we're talking about experience, right? Because it's unique, it's a better experience for your visitor. So here we're getting into the metadata part. So you only want to use one H1 tag, and it's a heading 1 tag, basically, is what that is. Generally, if you have a WordPress site, they will take whatever you name that page or post and use that as your H1 tag. I say generally because some themes don't always do that. So, but you want to think about it as an outline, right? You have a heading one, that's the important topic of the page. And then you can have multiple heading 2s, and then under a heading 2, you can have multiple heading 3s, and even 4. But you know, generally I see mostly 1 and 2s, and then maybe some 3s. And you want to think back to school when you had to write an outline for a paper, and it's the same concept. And then other metadata is the title, the URL, and the description. So you can see here, the title for that listing was Auto Repair Shop, Las Vegas, Nevada, Don's DI Auto, and they used too many characters, so it got cut off. And then within the URL, this one is just their domain name, but you might see their domain /brake repair for that page. And then you have your description. And with the description, you want to be interesting. You want to try and convince the person to click through to your website. So right here, they have a call to action, right? Call us now, but you might say, click through to see coupons or something like that. So it needs to be relevant to the page that they're going to be landing on. And each one of these, the title and the description, need to be different for every single page, and every single page needs to have one. If you're looking at code, this little section here is showing you what that looks like in the code. On a WordPress site, you can add a plugin like Yoast or all-in-one SEO, and there are a few others. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later. That you can use that make it easier to manipulate these types of things. So again, I got ahead of myself, huh? Where do I do that? So here's our SEO plugin for WordPress site. And this one happens to be Yoast, this example here. And you can see you have this little blurb. This is what it would look like on Google if you did a search. And you can see I have the title and the page information on it. And so it just comes up with the title of the page. And then the slug is basically what comes after your domain name and the slash. So this would be, you know, website.com/this summer, your business will shine. This one doesn't have a description. And you can see right here, it says, please provide a description by editing below. So you would type in what that article is about. So right now, if we were to look at this, Google's looking at it and saying, okay, this is something about summer business and shining. So it's probably not the best SEO, depending on what the article is about. And obviously this article, there's no description, so we can't tell any further. So this is what I'm trying to convey here is Google doesn't look at your website, it reads your website, right? And so that metadata, it's reading that metadata to see what your website is about, right? And so if I'm looking at this, I can kind of infer what it might mean. But Google doesn't really, right? It's just a mathematic equation looking at association of different words and the relevance of those words. So this would need to be reworked, right? And then another important thing is your images in your content, right? You want to make sure you have high quality images. And when I say high quality, I mean, how are they, what's the lighting, right? You don't want to be in a dark, hard to see image. You don't want to put those up. What's the framing of that image, right? Is the topic of concern in the focus? Is there a bunch of stuff going on in the background that is making it too complex, and so you don't really know what you're looking at? So make sure they're good quality images. This is for conversion. And then don't use stock images. Google knows stock images. You can get found in image searches. And so all the stock images are there already. So, take good photographs, have someone take good photographs of your business, of the people in your business, both staff, potentially guests, your products, your services, your food, whatever it is, take good pictures of that. And then upload those to your sites. Images, size matters, because what I've seen a lot of times is people take pictures with like their iPhones, right? The iPhones now have great cameras on them, but they have their image set to such a huge resolution that it comes in at like 30 inches by 30 inches. And what happens is when you load that up to your site, it slows the site down. So you want to manipulate those images so that if your image that you're adding to your site is 4 inches by 4 inches, then make that image 4 inches by 4 inches and then upload it to your site. And there's different ways that you can do that with different software. And then when you're naming the file, don't name it image 038972, name it something like summer business promotion or summer business coupons or something like that, so that it's related to the topic that you're going to use. And then there's this thing called the alt tag. And basically the intention of that tag is for ADA purposes. So people who have difficulty seeing the screen, are blind, then they have an app that will actually read the name of the image and the alt tag and those kind of things. So as the app is reading the page, it will stop at the image and say, woman in sunglasses looking up with yellow background. All right. So you want to make sure it's descriptive in that way, but sometimes you can also insert some keywords, right? Again, Google reads your website, the code behind your website. So if the more subtle keywords you have in that, so maybe it's shopper looking for summer deal is wearing yellow sunglasses on a yellow background, something like that. So it's still descriptive, but relevant to your keywords, right? So let's go back to our relevancy on these things. So we're talking about mobile versus desktop, right? That's because of the size matters issue, right? With the speed, that's really important. And then the metadata, we talked about that. We talked about the speed with the experience and mobile friendly, right? So because it loads fast, that's one of the key things for mobile friendly, because it's potentially responsive theme that also gives it mobile friendly. And we said unique stock. So right now we have, over half of the relevancy and experience points that Google's looking for. Okay, SL certificate. So
Chris, that's a quick question.
Sure.
So when we are talking about high resolution pictures, that might not be the best idea for a website. Is that it? I mean, we have to balance out resolution and description, I guess.
Yeah, so resolution is basically 72 pixels on any digital screen. So I tend to bump it up a little bit more than that, because when you're making the picture or changing the resolution, 72 doesn't come out great, but you might look at like 150 or something like that as far as resolution, DPI. But then you want to make sure that the sizing is appropriate. Those are really the important things, because the DPI and the actual like physical size, the pixel size of the image will not only affect resolution, but it will affect how big that file is. And the larger the file it is, the slower it loads. And Google doesn't like slow. And there are ways that you can go and take your image and then compress the image. So, I've had stuff that were a megabyte and it's down to like 80K kilobytes. I mean, it compresses it and takes out, because there's all this metadata in pictures you take. So if you take a picture from your phone, you have the picture itself, but there's all this data behind it. Says, okay, it was used with this lens, it was taken on this date, this is where it was taken. There's all that information, and you don't necessarily need all of that online, right? No, most people are not going to see it. I will caveat that and say there are some SEO things that help you by that, but that's too technical for what we're talking about now. So, but what I mean by high quality is it has to be a reasonable resolution so that it doesn't look fuzzy, but more that it looks more professional with the lighting and the framing, and that it is unique, not just stock images. So, does that clear that up?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. So, and I know I'm going really quickly here, guys. We have a lot to cover, so hopefully I'm not losing anybody here. The SSL certificate. So this is a security measure that Google has, it basically now requires you to have. And the whole web community is headed this way. And it's basically, if you notice, when you look at your domain name, it says HTTP/ or :/ and then your domain name, or HTTPS : / and that S is that SSL certificate, and it secures it, and it basically creates this encryption between the two, the user and your website. So if they're submitting personal information like email, maybe a credit card, that hackers have a more difficult time in gathering that information. So it's this safe experience that they're looking for. The next piece is making sure your website's mobile friendly, right? So there's more to being mobile friendly than responsive, right? You'll see these themes, particularly on WordPress, that say they're responsive. That doesn't necessarily mean it's mobile friendly in Google's eyes. A mobile friendly site is responsive, but a responsive site is not necessarily mobile friendly. And what responsive means is if you have a website and you're looking at it on a tablet, and then you rotate the tablet so that it's landscape, the site changes size, right? Or if you're looking at a desktop, it looks one way, but if you're looking on your phone, it looks another way. And you can kind of see here, right? This is what it would look like on a desktop. You don't want it to look the same on a phone, because all of these little text and everything, it's tiny, it's hard to read, it's hard to navigate, it's hard to click on. And so you make it mobile friendly and the buttons become bigger, and it shifts how the text is read and organized, so it's easier to read and scroll through, right? So you have easier navigation, touch-friendly buttons, so that your fat fingers don't hit both buttons at the same time, and they tend to be faster speeds.
They look like a different website.
Yes, completely. Very often, completely different.
Do you need two websites? Is that it?
No, you can have mobile friendly sites. It's the same site. So in the back end and your admin area, you change one post information and it will change on both. It's just how it's two pieces of code in one site is basically how it goes. So it's just a matter of setting it up. And most WordPress themes today are responsive. And then there are other things you have to do generally to make it mobile friendly. So, but the importance on this is mobile friendly is because you're mobile, Google takes into account your location, right? So if I'm at my house and I'm looking for a barber, it's going to show me what it thinks is relevant to my general location. If I'm in Seattle and I'm looking for a barber, it's not going to show me stuff at my house. It's going to show me wherever I am in Seattle. At mobile versus desktop, right? This relevancy again, obviously we're talking mobile. So the experience, it's the speed when it's mobile, and then mobile friendly, which speed is a part of. So how do you know if your site is mobile friendly? Ask Google. So you can go to this URL or just look up mobile friendly tests, Google mobile friendly tests, and it'll show up. And you enter your domain into this and then test the URL. And what happens is it gives you some results, right? And so you can see this example. It basically looks just like it would on a desktop. So you can see it's hard to read. It's hard to click on any of the links because they're so close together. And so it says this is not mobile friendly, even though it was fast. And it says here, clickable elements are too close together and the viewport not set. And that's basically how it sizes things. So they'll even tell you how to fix these errors, right? So you can go in, see what's wrong with your site. You can learn how to fix them yourself, or you can hire someone to fix them for you. But at least you know what to look for, and then how to make sure that the person helping you did the right job.
And you don't have to have your website hosted by Google
No.
to do this.
No, it doesn't matter where it's hosted. It will go out and it'll look at your website and it crawl. And sometimes you have to do that for each page. So you may have to put your different pages in that URL entry spot. But generally, if your home page is, probably the rest of your site is. But you can go through and look at each page or spot check a few pages just to make sure.
And we have a question about, I don't know, what does it typically cost to have a website optimized?
So it really depends on the size of the site, the competitive nature of the keywords, and what your goals are. And so we can talk a little bit more about that as we get closer to the end. But there is no definite answer. But remind me again as we get to the end. Okay, so site speed. We've talked a lot about that, right? If it takes too long to load, then people will go to your site and they'll get tired of waiting, and so they jump off. And Google has very specific timings that they like to see. So it's important not only from a search engine optimization, but but you know, it's better for your conversion, because if people think your site's taking too long, then they go to your competitor instead of just waiting, right? People are impatient. They want it right now. And the more we're on mobile devices, the more important that is, right? And so again, that relevancy, mobile versus desktop speed, mobile friendly. So why is your site so slow, right? You can ask Google this too. So you can go to this or just go to Google page speed test, and same thing, enter your page into this, hit analyze, and it'll come up. And it will tell you both on desktop as well as mobile. And this happens to be the mobile version. And so this is a 23 out of 100, not really a good speed wise, right? Desktops, I try and get into at least the 70s. 90s is much better. For mobile, it doesn't have to be as fast, and tends to be more difficult to get fast. If you can get in the 90s, great. If you're in the 70s, that's okay. And now what's happened is Google has introduced what they call core vitals, right? And you can see these core web vitals here. And this site, although it's really slow, it actually passes 3 of the core vitals. And basically this is, you can see it's 1 second, 1.4 seconds, 25 milliseconds. And this is basically how long it is that the upper part of the screen is loading so that a user can start interacting and engaging with the site. Cumulative layout shift. I'm sure many of you have experienced this when you land on a mobile site and you're reading something, and then all of a sudden the text jumps up or down. That's because of this cumulative layout shift. And what it is there's some delayed ad generally, but sometimes it's just an image on their site or a form or something that is taking a little bit longer to load. And so as you're reading, all of a sudden it loads and it changes that view. And that's a bad user experience, right? You're in the middle of a sentence and then all of a sudden it disappears and you've got to go scroll back to find where you are. And sometimes it happens multiple times. And so Google recognizes that's a bad experience. They also recognize that tends to do with ads, and they don't want you to have a bunch of ads on your site. And so, and that's my own conspiracy theory anyway on it. So you want to try and make those. And I know this is kind of technical at this point, but at least it tells you what is going on, why it's slow. And then it will, as you scroll down, it will actually tell you what, I didn't put that in there, but what you can do to help mitigate the slowness of the site.
And we are putting the links on the chat. So if you want to test your websites later, like he said, if there's a problem, it's better to know about it than you figure out how to fix it.
Yeah. The good thing is, you need to know what to look for. And then if you can fix it yourself, great. If you need to hire someone, at least you know what to look for once it's done. And you say, okay, yes, you did this job. I can, feel good about what work you did.
You can always ask Google.
Yes. And then I can also send something maybe early next week that we can send out to everybody. That's a little cheat sheet handout that has the links and that kind of stuff in it. Okay, so let's talk about engagement, right? So we have, and how are we doing on time? Okay, I need to speed up a little bit. So engagement is about time on site. How long are they on your site? Are they going to other pages? Has this person been to your site and now has come back to your site? Well, are they performing actions on your site? Are they clicking links? Are they filling out forms? Are they watching videos? Or are these people coming to your site and within a second bouncing back off your site and going somewhere else, right? So everything that we've talked about up to this point can affect this engagement, right? And this is really important for your conversions too. But this is that historic engagement element. So out of the things that we've talked about, we've basically gone through on the website all of the relevancy and experience subtopics. Now you're an expert. Okay, maybe not, but you have the info that you need. And, was that the G.I. Joe cartoon, knowing is half the battle? So once you know that, then you can go back and say, okay, where do I need to fix things on my website? But we're just really getting started because we've only talked about your website, right? So now we need to shift gears and talk about business profiles, right? In particular, the Google My Business profile. If you have a business, and particularly if you're brick and mortar, you have a shop location or a restaurant, something like that, then you need to have a Google My Business profile. You will get more visitors to your website if it ranks. So more visitors to the website means more potential customers. It means more brand awareness. You fill out more of those spots on the search engine, and it's more trust, and more trust means more conversion, right? So getting into maps, you have to have a business profile. Getting into knowledge graph, you have to have a business profile. Getting into some of the other test sections that Google does, you need to have a Google business profile. And then the interesting thing is you can see here, Google also searches the web and finds reviews from other places like Facebook and Birdeye. So you need to have those profiles as well, but we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so what do you need to do for a Google business profile? First, you got to sign up for it, right? So go to google.com/business and you'll get something similar to this screen. You can click Manage Now, and it'll come up with this message of find and manage your business, type in your business name, and you do a search for your business. Sometimes Google will already have something set up because there's been a lot of interaction with your business somehow. But if you haven't set it up, generally there isn't one set up. And then it'll walk you step by step how to do this, right? How are you going to start building the profile? So you enter your business name, you select a category, carpenter would probably be the category here. You can look back on the map section and kind of see what your competitors are listing as their main category and put that there. And then once you get that set up, then you'll get a login information to Google My Business. And when you log in, it kind of looks like this. I just pulled up the pressed almost one. So it's easy to see. And you can click on, you can make posts. It's good to make weekly posts. You have the info here and basically has your address, hours, and kind of what your listing will look like, that kind of thing. And it's really important to go through and fill out all of the business information, right? So for Google My Business, you want to have 10 to 20 photos. So this is logo counts as a photo, exterior shots of your business, interior shots of your business, staff shots, working staff, maybe headshots, products and or service relevant photos, 10 to 20. build it out, and do the same thing that we talked about on the images for your website. Name the file of the business service or the product or keyword related term, and make sure that they're good quality as far as lighting and framing go. This one, you don't have to worry so much about the size of the file because Google will adjust and compress it for you. And don't use the same photos that you used on the website. Use different photos. You want to make sure your hours are there, your contact info is there, a link to your website. You want to add your other social media, so your Facebook business profile. If you have an Instagram for your business, I don't know if you can add Yelp or not, but certainly add it. And then get reviews. You want obviously 4 to 5 star reviews, but actively ask your clients to do reviews, and then make sure you're in the right category. And you can keep it to just one category, but you can also add some secondary categories. So maybe it's, your main category is restaurant, but the second category is Thai restaurant or something like that. So the thing about Google Business is it hits all of the relevancy and experience subtopics, which is why it ranks so well. All right. So, all right, you've done all this. Your business, you feel like, has a solid Google My Business profile. Now, what are you supposed to do? Well,
and this is free.
And this is free. Do it again, right? I know this is the reaction I see all the time. It's like, what? I just did all this work. Now I have to do it again. Yep. Do it all again, right? There are a lot of business profiles and listings. So social profiles, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Google Plus is gone now, Snapchat, and then LinkedIn, right? Those are social profiles that your business should have. And then business listings. There are hundreds and hundreds of these, right? So Yelp is a particular one that you probably should consider. Foursquare, local.com, Easy Local, Yellow Pages. There are coupon sites that you can be on. I mean, there are a ton of them. So build out, you don't have to do them all at the same time, but build them out. The critical thing is that the information is exactly the same. So if you are, on 1234 East Main Street, and then on your Google profile, you want to match your Google profile. So 1234 East Main Street. If you go to the Yellow Pages and you put 1234 Main Street and you didn't put the East, that confuses Google. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure they're all exactly the same. If you have a suite number, make sure you add the suite number every time, and try and make it the same. Some places you put in suite 203 and sometimes it'll come up, they will abbreviate it for you. So sometimes it's just number 203, sometimes STE 203. That's not as big of a deal, but if you have a suite number, add the suite number. Make sure everything is the same. I can't stress that enough. Make sure everything is the same. All right, so why are you doing all this? Well, remember, we're trying to get on the first page, right? And you can see here, they have their website and their Yelp. So you can rank these other profiles. So it's important to have them. Plus, people will go to Yelp and not even look at Google, right? They'll go to Yelp and look for a restaurant or a barbershop or an auto repair place. So it's important to be there because people are there searching. Same with Facebook. People will go and look for recommendations on Facebook. So you want to be there, a business profile page. And so just like people go there, people go other places. So find out where your clients are looking for information and build a profile there. Real estate agents, they need to have profile on Zillow and Twillo and all those different ones, So know where your folks are and go sit in front of them is basically what the message is there. All right, so we'll do SEO evaluation really quick here. This basically covers what we talked about, but it gives you a quick way of looking at your site and saying, do I have all these things? Check, 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 check. Okay, I'm in decent shape, or I don't have any of this, and I need to do something. So I'm just going to briefly go over this. So you want to make sure, do you rank for your brand name, right? So if you type in your brand name, do you show up in Google? You want to have your website in the top. You want it number one, but in the top 3 is fine. Do any of your social medias show up? Do you show up in the knowledge graph? Sometimes the social media profiles don't show up unless you type in your brand and then Yelp. Right? Sometimes you have to manipulate that a little bit. They make sure that you are developing fully, answer all the questions you can in all the profiles. So the Google My Business, your Facebook page, your Yelp, answer all of the questions in the setup and the info thing. Don't be lazy, fill it out, and make it unique and make it interesting, because it's a conversion thing when people go there. So it is important, and it's a ranking factor.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
can we get a copy of the 6 steps?
Yep, I'm gonna. I'll send a PDF with this and some of the other
cheat
information.
sheets.
Yeah.
All the homework. All the
homework. Exactly.
Yes.
So, make sure it's mobile friendly. We showed you how to do that. Make sure it's fast. Showed you how to do that. Does it rank in Google for your primary keywords, right? It might work for your brand, but does it work for auto repair or, something like that? Barbershop. Do you have to add the location, right? So maybe you're doing barbershop Phoenix, and then it shows up. So look around a little bit, do a little bit of research. That way you know better where you're ranking and what you need to rank for. Does the on page look okay? That's that metadata, right? The URL, the title, the headings, and the content. Is there enough? Take a look. You can paste it into charactercountonline.com and it'll tell you exactly how many words is in it. All right, so you got your website up. Now there's traffic come to your website. Now what do you do? All right, this is all about the conversion section. And I'm going to kind of blast through this a little bit because we're running a little bit behind. So experience and trust is what you need to consider when you're dealing with website conversion, right? So this is your client. I want it and I want it now, right? We've all dealt with these people. So you need to make it easy for your customers, right? People tend to be a little blind when they're looking for something. They don't always know what to do, even though you feel like they should be able to figure out what it is. You have to tell them, tell them and show them. Make your click button really big. Tell them, click this button to get this thing. I hate to say it, but people are kind of dumb. So tell them what to do and they will kind of follow. So here's your conversion checklist, right? This is all about experience. Make sure there's a phone number. If I'm looking you up, I might want to call to set up an appointment. So I need to easily at the top find your phone number. I need to know your address, right? Maybe I have an appointment, but I don't know how to get there. Tell me what the location is. Maybe a link to a map would be nice. Okay, I found your website. I need to make sure that you have the product or do the service that I'm looking for. Put that right up front so that I know, right? An easy way to make reservations, particularly if you're a restaurant. Easy jump to a shopping cart or to get a quote. When you're talking on the website, emphasize benefits, not features. So a feature is this widget is blue, right? What is a benefit is how that helps me. Why is that important to me? It's blue, so it's different than everything else. So when I go to look for it, I can see that it's blue and it stands out and I pick it up, right? That's the benefit. Provide a warranty and guarantee if you can. Go ahead.
Yes. So we have a very good question here. When we talk about getting the customer, when we talk about getting the attention of the customer,
right?
Some industries are very competitive, like on the realtors.
Right.
Okay, we have 10 realtors in the same office.
Right.
Office location, Google My Business already set up. How can we differentiate, or should we using other tools within Google to stand out?
Yeah, so realtors, that's a tough side. When I work with realtors, I tell them that they are their brand, right? Because you may work for one, Keller Williams one day and Remax another day, in 3 years from now, or Home Away in, 6 years from now. So you are your own brand. So you'll have your realtor website and the Google My Business listing for the realty, but you should also be developing your own brand that can move with you. And then be unique there. Why should I go to you versus, Sam or Sally over here? Who do I need to, why do I come to you? So you need to figure out what are those benefits, right? You need to come to me because I am the expert in this vicinity, because I've sold this many and I always get over asking price. And those are the benefits really that you need. And then make it easy for them to contact you, specifically for that real estate example. Same thing with the images. When we come to experience, you want the high quality, relevant to the topic and customer, and you want to keep testing, because you might think an image looks great and you put it up there, you don't get any response, and then you put another one up there and all of a sudden people are clicking. So testing is important, particularly with images.
But you can do Google My Business the same way as other businesses, or there's going to be a problem registering a realtor, since there are many realtors in that office.
Yeah, so it's really tricky that way, because you need a business address for a Google business profile. And generally, they only allow one business at that address. Now, you might have a suite number that you can add in, and that's fine. But as a realtor, unless you're going to do a home address, which isn't great, and you can't use like a mailbox, et cetera, or PO box or anything like that. Google doesn't like those. They won't allow it. Or they might allow it, but they're not going to rank you. So it needs to be a real physical location. If you work from home, that can be a little bit tricky. You can do it, certainly, and you can rank, but it can be a little bit tricky, and everybody knows where you live. So, be careful when you're doing that. But yeah, with realtors, you can't just set up another Google business profile. Just use the company profile, and then, brand yourself and build yourself out as much as possible on other websites, your own website, the Zillow pages, the realtor.com pages. You know, you have to build those out and get reviews. So, right, here we are, reviews, trust, right? Online review are perceived to be as valuable as if their best friend referred them to a business. So, you know, generally when you get a bad review, as long as you treat it okay, they're not super damaging, especially if you have a bunch of 5-star, 4 or 5-star reviews. If you only have a bad review, then you're in trouble. You need to get some additional reviews, but it's important to have those reviews and that they're realistic and they're informative, not just like, hey, great guy. You know, it has to be, have them tell their story about how you help them. That's important. Right. Another trust factor on your website are industry badges, right? Like the BBB, accredited business, Register of Contractors, seal, OSHA, you know, Department of Real Estate, whatever is important to your industry that says, hey, I'm a member of this industry, I abide by compliance guidelines, you know, put those images up on your website as long as you're allowed to. Right? So you want proof that all of this conversion stuff works? Let's look at a conversion machine. Amazon, right? Look at what they have. They have a descriptive title. They have reviews, right? This one has 3,000 reviews. Are you going to go and trust this one over one that only has 3 reviews? Yes. Are you going to trust this one over one that has 3.5 stars? Yes. So, you know, make sure that's how important reviews are. You know, good quality images that I can clearly see the product, right? And there are multiple images, so I can get it from different views. I can see it in action. I can see details. They even have a video here, right? There's a warranty for this product. Remember, we talked about warranty. Super easy to buy, right? I can buy now, or I can add to my cart and look for other things. You know, this is talking about mostly filters, but look, it says strainer-based filter, right? That's the feature. And then it filters debris to minimize clogging. That's the benefit. So they're doing feature benefit description, right? Automatic freeze protection to prevent pump damage. Feature benefit, right? And then we already know there's good ratings on it. And then if you were to scroll down, then there are also, if you like this product, you might like these other products, right? So Amazon lives and dies by conversion, right? So mimic them, find other places like them that live and die. You'll look at this one and you look at like Wayfair or Target or Walmart or any of those places, and they all have something very, very similar. These are giant corporations that put millions of dollars into marketing and research and development. Why wouldn't you just follow their example? All right, so now you have traffic to your website, you have traffic coming from your business profiles, you're getting the calls, but you're not closing deals, right? So this is all about sales, right? E-com, software as a service, that kind of industry, it's really mostly about web conversion and your customer service. So you need to have good reviews, get referrals from people, get the return sales, right? So have a really good converting website and then treat your customer right, and that the sales will come. For a more service industry, you need to think about who's taking that call, right? Who's answering the phone? Is it a priority for them to answer the phone? Or if they're doing other things, are you getting missed calls? Is the person answering the phone knowledgeable? You know, sometimes we just hire someone to answer the phone so it's not ringing all day. but they don't know anything about your products and services. Are they just setting them an appointment? Maybe that's all they need to do, but they need to generally be able to answer questions at a reasonable level. Do they have professional presence when they answer the phone? These are all really important things. Have a little frequently asked question answer sheet for them as a cheat sheet. That too, if they have to step away and someone picks up the phone for them, then the cheat sheet's right there, right? And customer service, customer service, customer service. Be good to your customer, and they will come back and they will refer and they will write you reviews. We're not really talking about sales, but I want to add that little bit of information in there for you. So we covered exposure, right? How to get found online. We covered conversion. Once you're found, how do you help to build that trust and get them to make the call? And then we touched on a little bit about once they call, what you need to be doing in order to close that sale. How will I know what to do? Just go look for the evidence, right? It's right in front of you. Look at the Google top 10, look at your competitors, both in Google, but also your local competitors. What are they doing? What's working for other industries in your area? What are the big players like Amazon and Target and Walmart? What are they doing? How can you do something similar and for your business, right? So do you have questions? I'm sure you do. Just go back and look at that previous slide. All the answers are there. Just kidding, sort of. So what you need to do is be relevant, provide a good experience, and build trust. And that is the essential for SEO and conversions. Whew, that was a lot of information, wasn't it?
No, but it was great information. Everything that you said, it makes perfect sense. And I like the way that you structure everything. So we'll provide these slides. Now, returning to some questions. Then, to finish the response, what does it typically cost to have a website optimized?
Right. So that can be really difficult, because if it's a highly competitive industry, like let's say DUI lawyer, it's going to cost a lot, because, for instance, it's not uncommon for a Google ad just to get a click on a DUI lawyer ad is $120 each time someone clicks that ad. So you can see how competitive that is, right? $120, $180 per click. And that's just a click to get them to your website. That's not converting them or anything like that. And Google ads are pretty low conversion. So that, would be running into the tens of thousands of dollars a month, for an SEO project. If you're talking about something less competitive, like, I don't know, local small engine repair shop, right? That's going to be less off the top of my head, because I would expect that to be a less competitive nature. And so it's really hard to say. What I will say is be careful if you're going to hire someone and they say, oh, we're going to get you found online for $500 a month, and you'll be on the first page and on these really competitive terms. That's not going to happen.
Right.
They're gonna charge you $500 a month, and they might get you there in a couple of months, but what they're doing is probably not the within the terms of service of Google, and Google will eventually figure out what they're doing and slap your website, and then you won't ever get found on the first page of Google. So it's really important to go to a provider who has a good reputation and has a reasonable fee for what you want to do. You know, you don't have to go after 10 high competitive keywords. You can go after one medium competitive, and maybe that you could do for $500 a month. You know, do like a setup and then a $500 just grow, and then over 9 or 12 months you might be able to get that particular keyword ranked. But you know, it's a difficult question to ask or to answer. I would say that for most businesses, I'm charging between $1,400 and $2,500 a month for medium competitive terms.
Okay.
So that's something to expect. But you know, you also have to look at it in a frame of light of, okay, I have 10 customers, new customers coming into my shop a month, and if I get on Google first page, there's enough volume there with, you know, rule of thumb conversion and people, I could get another 10 customers, right? One, can I handle 20 new customers a month? So I want to make sure, you know, that is something I can do as a business, because otherwise my customer service goes down, and why did I do it? So if I can handle 20 customers a month, what are those extra 10 customers a month value to me, right? For a dentist, it's about $1,800 per customer, per new customer, within the first like 9 months of their business. So if you're getting 2 new customers or 10 new customers, that's $18,000 a month of revenue that you're bringing into your business, right? So if I'm bringing in $18,000 a month of new revenue, then is, you know, 10% of that worth paying? A 1 in 10 ROI.
So return on investment.
Yeah, a 1 in 10 ROI.
Investment.
Yeah, and so when I do stuff, I always try and get at least a 1:8 ratio. So our goal is we look at enough volume with the conversion rate and say, okay, well, we think if you're on the first page of Google, you should be getting this much in revenue, and this is the charge. So it's at least 1 in 8. That's our goal. My goal anyway. So.
I think we should. I mean, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. We have another question.
Go ahead.
What about pictures? Any recommendations to take them with a phone?
Yeah, you can take them with a phone. Just make sure that they're, you know, the lighting is good, and that you know, with the filters and stuff, you can always mess with how it looks, make it look good. You can get some fantastic photos, you know, but like I said, just be careful on how you have it sized. And again, you can look online. There's different ways to resize images online, or if you have something like Photoshop or something like that, you can resize them pretty easily.
Okay. And
that was another question. How programs on how to handle images?
Yeah, that's a big thing. You know, there's so many different ones out there, and people's level of experience and manipulation are so different. You know, Canva is a good place that you could upload image to, and it will help you kind of resize and compress it, and then save the image down to whatever size, because they actually have templates. So you can go and do like a Facebook template, and it'll open up in the right size, and then you can import your picture and then kind of stretch it and move it around within that program. And that's completely free. Canva.com, CANVA.com. And that's probably the easiest way to get the right size photograph, or put your photograph into the right size for the digital media that you want to.
Yeah, that's the one that I use, and it's really good. I
Yeah.
mean, the free version has enough to keep you occupied. Like
Yeah.
you can do a lot of things with the free version.
Yes.
And then I have a comment, marriage and family therapists have restrictions on advertising.
Yeah.
So instead of listing guarantees and warranties, you might have to list specific trainings, treatments, modalities.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. How long you've been in the industry, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, certainly there, realtors too. And then other professional services have restrictions on what you can say or what you can claim. So you just have to be careful with that verbiage for your industry. But yeah, anything you can do to build trust though, goes a long way to conversion.
Awesome. Chris, any other words?
No, hopefully I didn't bore everyone to death and get something out of it.
Thank you, Chris, for being here today. Thank you for helping us to create this class.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you to Noé for giving us the support.
We just want to say thank you very much to UNR Extension, to Juan and Reyna, and above all, thank you very much to all the people that has been attending this webinar. We hope that as the economy is getting better, you get your website out there, you get more traffic, and you get more sales. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.